those that have been in the industry 30 years or more, stay standing. 35 years or more. 35 years. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I think put your hands together for those people. That's incredible. Now, isn't it wonderful that somebody's actually been in a career for that long? Because, I mean, real estate's a very exciting place. I've been on all sides of real estate. Besides the magazine, how many of you actually know Real Estate Investor magazine? Baie min van julle, hoor? Gee, waar kom julle vandaan? Well, we've been around almost for like 9 years, in fact. And I think probably we've neglected the agents more than we should have, because we tend to focus on investors, the people with the money. But I'll get to that a little bit later. So I'm really passionate about this game, and I'm really passionate about giving back to the people in this game. And I met various people, and I'll go in through that a little bit now. But I'm really excited working and talking to people like yourselves in the game and giving back. So, first of all, this wonderful game of property, real estate. Okay, I'm going to talk to you today about how to fast-track your success. Who would like to know that? Anybody? Yes, you would all like to get better in the game. But why real estate? Why property? Well, it's responsible for more millionaires than any other asset class in the world. And I can tell you that because all the billionaires that are on the stock exchange and all the listed companies and what have you, all of them, do you think they all own property? Yes or no? Absolutely. But do they disclose those assets? Yes or no? No, they don't. So, when you look at a net worth of an individual, when you're looking at the Forbes 500, it normally excludes all their personal assets. And when Dr. Anton Rupert died, he died with 100,000 rand in his bank account. Did you think that was his net worth? Definitely not. He left a legacy. He left a billion, I think it was a 6 billion rand, no, it wasn't rands, it was dollars, US dollars at the time. It was a massive, massive business, but he only had 100,000 rand in his personal bank account because everything's in different structures and that kind of stuff. On Friday, I'm actually meeting the second wealthiest guy in South Africa, Dr. Christo Wiese. And do you think he owns real estate? Absolutely. And he's just bought into a property fund called the Texton Property Fund. So all about this thing. So property, guys, is a fantastic place to be in. You're in a good space. We just have to lift your game to get that message out there. So there's different ways that you can invest in real estate. The traditional way, Will Rogers, he said, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Oops, you're just bouncing between the two. So Kiyosaki said, as long as you have more cash flowing in than flowing out, your investment is a good investment. But then, those are all the traditional ways, guys. But then there is a smart way, and that's Zaza Gabor's way. And Zaza Gabor says, I'm a marvelous housekeeper and investor. Every time I leave a man, I keep his house. Isn't that a wonderful way of buying property and acquiring property? So there are multitude ways. I always say to everybody, you can buy property with no money down. You just walk into the Department of Land Affairs and you tell them you want some property. True. No, I don't advise you doing that. So, when you start looking at properties, you see it yourself, you see it as this wonderful, wonderful palatial place which is worth millions and millions of rands. Your buyer, unfortunately, doesn't see it that way because he wants to make an offer certainly under the value. Then, of course, the bank, they do an evaluation of it, and especially nowadays, they mark it down, don't they? Do they mark it up or down? Down, right? And you've got it up there. And then, of course, your valuer, much the same. But then your municipality rate assessor, look at him. He sees it as this huge palace, and we just see the rates going up all the time. So it's amazing just to see all the different types of viewpoints from all the people at the different parts of the transaction. So the one secret, property's biggest secret, is compound interest. And it was Albert Einstein who came up with this, who said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who does not pay it. So you can either be on this side or that side of the transaction. You've got to decide whether you're going to be on the upside or the downside. And I can tell you that real estate is not that difficult to understand. And it's so important you are in the face of the house buyer that you're giving them good advice for that particular investment. It's because they look at you as a professional in the game. So it's so important that you are giving that right advice. But it's not always out there. And then, of course, we got the most expensive property. Anybody recognize that? Nkandla. 200 million. Now, if you look at Nkandla, and if you had to do probably a valuation by a bank, it would probably come to around about 20 million rand. Probably wouldn't be worth a lot of money. But 200 million has certainly gone into it. But I'm not here just I'm just looking at the variations. I was in Nettleton Road in Clifton probably about 5 months ago, a house which is 120 million rand with beautiful views of the Atlantic seaboard. And on the left side, they had some cranes, and on the right side, they had some cranes. And the guy that just bought the house wanted to rent it out to Louis Vuitton. You know the handbag people? Louis Vuitton? So they said, well, okay, we want to rent this place for you today, but we need to remove these 2 cranes. 250,000 for the left, 250,000 for the right, just for 2 days. 2 days, ladies. How many handbags is that? Huh? We worked it out? Well, Louis Vuitton certainly worked it out. So they said, remove those 2 cranes on either side so we have uninterrupted views when we launch our handbag sale in this house, one of the most expensive houses in Clifton. Okay, so how many of you watch the news? Now, let me tell you what, I know a lot of people don't even have TVs. We tend to also take in everything which is happening in the world today. And it's so important, I believe, that you've got to understand economics. Because we live in a world of boom and bust. So we've got to know, we've got to respond differently in different markets at any different time, and we need to understand what is a boom, what is a bust. And what's the message coming out at the moment? It's not good. Is it good or bad? Bad. Or depends from whose point of view. If you were prepared for it, maybe it's the biggest opportunity that could ever hit you at the end of the day, because interest rates will go up, guaranteed, probably by another at least 1.5 basis points. And is interest rate the only measure of real estate and the growth of real estate? Yes or no? No, it's not. It's not the only measure. There's so many other factors, these demographic factors of people moving into different areas that drive up property prices. So you've got to understand that. There's micro areas. In Cape Town in particular, we have we've got most of Gauteng wanting to move down over here. There's a lot of people dealt with Gautengers. Yeah, there we go. They're moving in their droves. They want to get out of Gauteng or they're leaving the country because they've heard all this bad news. And it's not all bad news, guys. So, I talk to the experts all the time, talk to the people in the game, and yet there's still people making money in any market. And this particular gentleman, Robert Kiyosaki, who I interviewed last year, it was the 4th time I did it, and he talks about the financial crisis, a great time for professional investors and a horrible time for average ones. So listen to that, guys. That is a global problem. We tend to look at things in South Africa, and it's only happening right here in South Africa, and it's a South African problem. No. They've had all the problems before in the United States. Everything's happened before in history. Just need to look back to look forward. You just need to see what's happened. There's nothing new that we're going to get challenges all the time in our life, every single day. And we just got to understand what they are, and we've got to be prepared for them. So we know there's lots of debt. I mean, people are talking about it. You know, there's huge debt at the moment. And it's just a matter of how we deal with it and how we get through it. And there's various takes on it, the positive and the negative take. Benjamin Franklin, he said, and remember Benjamin Franklin, I think he's on the $10 note, I think, or the $10 note. And he was one of the old presidents of the United States. And he said, at that time already, credit is a system whereby a person who can't pay gets another person who can't pay to guarantee that he can pay. How's that for the credit system? So there's push on all sides. And you think it's new? Well, I'll tell you what happened. In 1971, when Richard Nixon was the president of the United States of America, he took money, cash, money that was linked to gold, It used to be linked to commodities and gold in particular. They removed the exchange, which meant that money became absolutely worthless. So therefore, money is paper. It's based on sentiment. It's based on the confidence that you have of the people that are in charge, which in most cases is the government in all those particular countries. Hence, and I'll just use a comparison of the South African rand versus the US dollar. In 1961, for 74 US cents, you got a South African rand. 1961, okay? We're now sitting at what, 16 something? Eh? So what is it based on? It's pure sentiment. It's confidence. All the rating agencies, all these people, and I've heard all the banks talk about how they rock up and they go on a game drive and they say, you've been downgraded. You know, and they just, and they base it on sentiment. They base it on confidence on what's happening in that particular country. So you've got to be careful. So therefore, it makes property and the values of property could be worth anything. It could be worth a lot, or it could be worth a little. Depending, of course, how the person sees on either side of the transaction what that value is. Because I've heard property sold literally for R1. Anybody heard about that before? Yes, the banks have done it many times to distressed properties. But I've also heard property sold for 120 million rand or 200 million rand. Ridiculous. So it's these two, and you've got to understand, and as professionals in the game, you've got to lead that charge. So, oops, I don't know what happened. If we can just get the cash is trash visual. Sorry. So we talk about this money thing that, so what happens in the US and the UK, they go to the printing presses because they need to get more flow out there. And the only way they can do it is to go to the printing presses. Fortunately, in South Africa, we haven't done that. We haven't turned to the presses to do that. So I think really from a money is worth nothing. Now, if we look at the future, people are talking about Bitcoins. Everybody heard about Bitcoins? Blockchain, which is the ledger which Bitcoins goes through, that could be the new currency. Now, that currency could be worth one standard currency. Now, imagine somebody comes to you with Bitcoins and say, hey, listen, I've got 500 Bitcoins, I want that property. You going to take it or not? No, right now you're not. But in future, 10 years' time, let's fast forward maybe 10, maybe 15 years, and we look at where world currency is going, and Kiyosaki reckons that there's going to be a currency crash coming. Okay, so the rand is actually going to go down before it goes back up. People are predicting it's going to go down to around about 12 rand to the US dollar, maybe even 11. But it's going to shoot back up again. And it's all sentiment-based. However, you bring in a currency like the Bitcoin, and you have parity all around the world. Doesn't matter which country where you're transacting in, you know, they've still got to find out how they get that store of value for that Bitcoin. So these are the new things. And real estate always is a good investment. You've got control over it. I mean, commercial buildings, you can put real value because it's based on the income of the property. Isn't that a wonderful investment? Now, if you're on the stock market, you think you can control what's going on in the stock market? Yes or no? You can maybe send a letter to the CEO and say, please, you know, will you cut back on your expenditure? Or, you know, will you give us a good dividend? He said, well, I'll certainly try. But with property, you've got control over that value, where you can buy, sell, trade, and do what. Okay, so we see this scenario, and it's a world scenario. It's not only here in South Africa. It's very eminent here in South Africa. We do see it all the time. The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poorer. And we've got to try and do something to bridge this divide, because we need a strong middle class to be able to serve that middle class. So I quickly want to run through my story. My real estate story. When I was 24, I bought my first property. In fact, thereafter, I bought another one 6 months later in an area called Plattekloof Glen. You know that one? Just on the other side of Skiltbult. It used to be called Panorama, was Skiltbult at that time. That was in the 80s. I'm giving away my age now. So, and then I flipped 4 properties there, and I made probably over $1 million just by, I actually didn't know what I was doing. So that was my foray into investing and that kind of stuff. And I actually just started flipping for a number of years because it was quite tax-friendly at that particular time. And So I learned through myself. So does anybody know what this word means? Autodidact or autodidact? Anybody? Okay? It's a self-taught person. Okay? Somebody seeks instruction or guidance from experts, friends, partners, and communities, but it's really a self-taught person. Somebody who teaches themselves. And that's how I kind of did it, sort of like finding my way through the dark. Because where do you go to get real estate advice? You tell me. I'm talking about investing. To you guys? And you would say, yes, of course. But now if you had to give advice on do you have those information at your fingertips? Yes or no? I'm just putting the question out there. Maybe you should ask yourself that. So I've done a number of transactions, buy and sell, facilitated over 80 million. I formed a property association in 2005, and I've done over 100 investment seminars all around the world. And really, the reason why I do it is just to build my knowledge, because the more knowledge you get, the more educated you get, the more professional, the more money. It just goes hand in hand. All of them link together. Now, this book, does anybody know this book? It's called Think and Grow Rich. And this is the fundamental sort of foundation of wealth. And it was written by a guy by the name of Napoleon Hill, who was he was just an author. And he interviewed all the wealthiest people in the United States of America, Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie, and Rockefeller, and all those guys, to find out what was the formula for wealth and success. And he came up with these points. He said, the first thing is, in summary, you need to educate yourself. You need to build a business. You need to visualize your success, invest the profits, give back to charity, and then teach somebody else how to do it. Easy. There you go. I've given you the formula for success. There it is. The problem is, what's the problem? Not everybody at the same time now. What's the problem? Nobody does anything about it. Because why? Because they think they can't, and they're too old, or they're not educated enough, or they don't have enough money, or something like that. There's always some excuse that comes in the way. Does anybody have that problem sometimes? Just a little bit? Just a little bit. Yeah, I also get it sometimes. So, but this is really, I mean, it's such a critical point. If you can get to understand that, and if you know that it's all about what you do, and not all these different, it's all about what you do on a daily basis and following through on different things. This guy, Robert Allen, anybody heard of him? 1982, that's when property really became popular in the United States. He wrote this book, Nothing Down, Real Estate. Now, the thing was, the interesting story about it was he'd never actually done it before. He just wrote the book. So one journalist decided to take him up on it and say, listen, you've written this book over here. I need to see how you buy this property with nothing down. Whoops, now he had a problem. So, of course, this guy trailblazed him. He followed him everywhere, and he said, well, geez. And then, of course, what happened, just through the sheer, this guy following him and the force behind him, he did about 5 deals in a week with nothing down. People said, but you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't. He said, well, there it is. He did it. And it's just because he had somebody behind him, because he would have reported and said, this book is a farce. This is a fraud. It doesn't work. And that was 1982. And it was also the start of all these TV showmen that sort of came onto and started promoting property as an investment, because nobody did it before. And everything was stocks, especially after 71. And then Kiyosaki's first book was, he wrote, if you want to be rich and cool and happy, don't go to school. And that's quite interesting. Because, how many people have you seen that have left school with 7 A's, cum laude, blah, 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 and they go out into the real world and they don't make it? Anybody? Know somebody like that, perhaps? And you say, you've got to go to school, get grades, and all that kind of stuff. And he proved that point. And if you look at all the wealthiest people in the world, they're not the most educated or formal educated people in the world. So, buying versus renting, should we buy, should we rent? Those questions are always. Now, Kiyosaki also wrote this book, and I'm sure most of you know that one. Anyone who doesn't know Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he came out with this statement that said, your house is not an asset. Imagine saying that to your buyer that's just bought what you bought is not an asset. And if you go into it, he's absolutely right. And the reason is you need to understand what is a proper asset, what is a liability. Because an asset is something that gives you income. A liability is something that you put money into. So if you start thinking about a house, you put how much money do you put in for maintenance and levies, and then the municipality bills go, and then there's an interest rate rise if you've got a mortgage bond on it. So all these factors start affecting your house. And I'm not saying don't buy houses, not at all. It's just something to think about. But what he's saying is build up an investment portfolio of properties that's cash flow positive and use that money to buy the beautiful house. That's what you need to do. So if you can get into that position, because you could live easily in Camps Bay for 30,000 Rand a month rental, and you can scratch around, you'll find it with the beautiful view. But in that house, what is the bond going to be? Probably 60 or 70,000, right? Easily. So you can live the lifestyle. So that's why there is an argument. And I work closely with Avon Ritter, and he's one of South Africa's top property. He's actually just down the drag over here, well-known property economist, and he says it's cheaper to rent than to buy. And he just says it categorically. Everybody says, oh, you can't say that. How can you say that? Property is a great investment. Yes, it is. But it's also all about the numbers when it comes to investment. So it's about making money. And if you're an investor, and that's where we focus on the making money side, so you can buy all the wonderful things. So just a little bit, I wrote this book, Dance Until It Rains. It was about this guy who was a big property investor. He now lives in Bloemfontein, but he's actually from Johannesburg, lived in Durban. And why I wrote the story about Gordon is that he actually made so much money in property, but lost everything on the stock market. He owns now about 350 properties, mainly in the Durban area in the CBD, but now he owns property offshore, in America, in Seychelles. He owns a building in Mhlanga, I think a couple of buildings. But what he did was he leveraged. He was a normal guy. He was a normal person. 1998, I think he was literally bankrupt. And he managed to get out of it. And a lot of things went wrong, and I wrote the story about it. Unfortunately, I don't have the book here today, but you can get it onto your Kindle. It's called Dance Until It Rains, and I wrote that story about it. But very interesting. So I founded the magazine 2009, and hopefully I can convert some of you to read the magazine. You can get it online for free, so you don't have to pay. Because I know estate agents, some of you say, oh, it's tough out there, not getting the deals. We don't want to educate ourselves. It's really tough. It's tough. We can't. I don't want to spend my education. Give me the information, but give it to me for free. So I'll do it. I'll do that favor for you guys. I will give it to you for free. Just do yourself the favor and go online and get it. We've got videos on there. We've got the whole entire magazine. But if you do it in print, you're going to have to pay for it because it costs money to print the magazine. Okay, so I've met Mr. Trump. I met him in Sydney, Australia in 2011. Very interesting guy. Now going for president and for the Republicans for office. And it seems he's making a bit of an impact. Interesting guy. It's not the person you see when you meet him that you see on TV. He's a very different guy. But very successful, and he's a real estate celebrity. Same, I met Tal Kersner, Robert Kiyosaki, and all those people as well that I've interviewed. So we've done all those guides. We've also been, we won last year the SAPA Award, South African Property Owners Association. So we've been recognized, and we're very proud of that. We're also in Zimbabwe. Unfortunately, it didn't hang around too long. Publisher ran out of money. I don't know if Mugabe took all the money, but I'm not sure. But unfortunately, they couldn't carry on. We're now in Mozambique. We do it in both Portuguese and also in English in Mozambique, this magazine. So, and we're looking to obviously get through Africa as well and expand. So we see there's a changing media landscape. And we look at two media press, where there was the press was present, and you look at the difference between 2005 and 2013 in terms of where we're moving. We're becoming into a digital world, and we're moving extremely fast. Yes or no? We are. You can go online and find your property, and you've got to think about how's that going to impact you. You say, oh, we've got private property, we've got a property 24, and all this. Well, what about you? How does it impact you? What are you doing about it? And it's so important that you keep up with these technological trends, because it's going to run away with you. And it's scary. I mean, we come from a print magazine background from 9 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, we're digital. We have to. We've got to go. We've got to run fast with the bulls. If we don't, they'll trample us. So you have to move. We cannot stand up for it. So digital books and magazines. And yes, I think we've got to realize I've made many mistakes in investing. I've made a lot of money, but I've lost a lot of money. I've made a lot of money. And you've got to realize that you've got to make mistakes. And you must get comfortable with it. But if you start repeating the same ones, not a good idea. We've got to realize where we're going wrong and how we can fix things going forward. Sometimes we don't realize it. And when investors come, you know, they all talk about how they made their money. And especially, I remember in 2005, my hairdresser, when I did have hair, actually said to me, he bought 3 rental properties. And I'm thinking now, well, what do you know about property? He says, yeah, it gives you very good rental returns. You know, he's a German guy. And so, you know, but eventually the market tanked, and he couldn't get the rent in, and he paid a top dollar price, and unfortunately, you know, he lost all the properties. So a lot of people go on this emotion, this roller coaster ride, okay? And when you buy property and real estate, not in your game, because when you buy a house, it's the beautiful kitchen, isn't it? And here is the dining room, and here is the bathroom. And here is the ensuite, the master bedroom. Not so. And everybody, and look at this view. Oh, oh. And everyone goes, wow, darling, buy it. Isn't it? It's all emotional. It is emotional. Unfortunately, it just is in the house buying industry. It just is. But in real estate investing, we look at the balance sheet. And that's what's most important. No emotion. Nothing. We look at cold. And we look at what are the returns, what are the rental returns, what are the yields, what are the IRRs, internal rates of return, all those different. Heard of those statements before? Some of you? All of you? But you guys are in property, right? So you've heard of it. Okay, good. So you can. Buckminster Fuller. This guy has got the most patents in the world. We don't even know him. He's not allowed anymore. But he's been all this, not a well-educated guy at school, but he's all these things, an architect, a mathematician, author, designer, blah, blah, blah. And he says, the reason I know so much is because I made so many mistakes. Isn't that amazing? Some of us are so scared of actually making mistakes and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And we find that in the middle of difficulty lies massive opportunity. And a lot of people say, oh, just everything is going wrong with me. And you just got to stop sometimes and just think and say, well, what is it? And normally it's during those times that you actually pick up some wisdom. And you say, wait, you know, actually, you know, let's turn this thing around. You know, I've got lemons, let's make lemonade, and how do we do that? And, you know, so it's, in the middle of difficulty lies massive opportunity. And we've got to realize that if things are going wrong all the time, remember, it always turns around. And some people take their lives for it. And they're crazy. I mean, you know, we're not long on this earth. We've got to make the best of it. So there's opportunity, and everybody's got that gift. And I just think a man upstairs there, he just says to you, all right, I'm going to chuck that one at you, Oak. You see what you can do about that one. So whether it's the universe or God, whoever it may be, I don't know. But we get those curveballs. We've got to deal with them. And that's life. So I also realized that real estate, because I was flipping, I wasn't really I was more of a trader rather than an investor. And I met this guy, Dr. Riz. He used to advise Kiyosaki. And he said, real estate investing is 80% psychology and 20% skills. Now, everybody's teaching you on the how-tos, how to invest and how to do this and all that. But a lot of it's got to do with that psychology part. Can I do it? Do I want to do it? And if we can get over that part, I can tell you what, that will change our success also going forward. So it's all about what you do. So that's what happens. Some of you go to university. I'm not saying don't do it. It's important to get those fundamentals and all that kind of stuff. So don't say don't go, but you're going to have to carry on educating yourself because that's where you're going to get the real information. So I've been a speaker at a number of events internationally. We do our event. We do an annual conference at the Rhoda. So it's an annual full-day event that we do nationally. That's the last one. It was at Spear Wine Estate. And we get commercial speakers, residential, everything, something that you should go to. I'm also a mentor coach. I have a number of clients, call them students, clients, whatever, who I mentor in the real estate space, whether they're running their own business. That guy over there is Jack Welch. Anybody know Jack Welch? He's the CEO of General Electric, GE. You know, all the Boeings and all the engines on the end of the Boeing, they manufacture that. So they keep them in the sky. So when the engine blows, it's General Electric's fault. So But Jack Welch, what I learned from him, interesting guy. I mean, he was essentially in a corporate. And so he had a very straight thing which he had with his staff members. And he called it candor, C-A-N-D-O-U-R, candor. Does anybody know what it is? And it's being forthright. It's being straightforward with somebody. And he says, use candor in your business. And if you use candor and being forthright with people, not in a negative way or in a denigrating way, or, you know, we just want to be forthright with somebody. And that's how in business and in life we should be. We should be straightforward. If there's something going well, tell somebody you're doing a great job. If it's not going well, say you're not doing a good job, but you've got to fix this. You've got to fix it now. And he calls that candor, and it's worked very successfully for him. So I've learned a lot of lessons. The one thing is I say, educate yourself all the time. I mean, I don't know enough. I'm not, you know, I'm still a student. I go every single year to new events, meet new people, find new mentors. I have a mentor myself, and I speak to these people all the time, and I learn all the time. There's never enough. I mean, I come to real estate events, every single time I learn something new. So it's so important to keep up to speed. And then now you wonder, and you come back and you say, well, business is bad. Stuff. Really, you know, the market, the economy is going down. There'll be a world crash. You know what I mean? So we tend to find all these excuses. And that's why you come to events like this that Louis put on. Hasn't he put on such a great event? Hey, Louis, thanks very much. And you know how long it took for me and Louis to get this off the ground? I mean, we had many cups of coffees and many breakfasts and many meetings. Maar uiteindelik. Dankie, Louis, man. So we got it going. So the one thing I say, get educated. And there's free education. A lot of it's online if you don't want to pay for it. But there's also paid education, because sometimes free advice is not always the best advice you can get either. Okay. And Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. But it's the right education. Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. That's what Jim Rohn said. So you've got to get outside of the universities. Some of them are still behind. I mean, if you look at the jobs that are coming online, some of the jobs that, our children that are going to go to, they haven't even been created yet. You know, the technology is changing the world in such a fast way. So we've got to invest in ourselves. Because if we don't invest in ourselves, we're not going to get anywhere. Okay, so it's quite a different way of thinking, very different. So this whole asset, so is it starting to get through in terms of this? I mean, is it quite eye-opening? Yes or no? Yeah? Yeah? So it's you know, so we really got to open our eyes up to, you know, the people that we move around with. I mean, that actually makes us. So it's so important. And you'll be surprised how many wealthy, successful people out there will be willing to actually listen to you. And actually, they say, you know, you're asking me a question? Of course. They're so willing to help. And just by asking questions from them, you get so much back. Okay, I know we're getting a bit of, we're running out a bit of time, because I know, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, Excel. And so, Dixie's have a strategy, how to build wealth, simplify, spend less than you make, and invest a difference. Build a reliable team, and Kiyosaki said that, you know, you've got to build your team, so it's also the people that and he said, talking about getting a tribe, group of people together. Trump said, watch, listen, and learn. You can't know it all yourself. Anyone who thinks they do is destined for mediocrity. So you've got to get the things. So you also got to learn about how to protect wealth, and that's a whole big sort of another discussion. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, all the wealthy people have got different structures and that kind of stuff. And, yeah, there's different ways you can build wealth, and different ways that people believe you can. They can steal if you want to become wealthy. Remember this guy, Jesse James? He says he robs banks because that's where the money is. Those were in the old days, Jesse. Try going to the bank, and even if they've got 80,000, they have to call for paper. So imagine how this world has changed. So the other way, you can litigate. Discourage litigation, says Abraham Lincoln. Persuade your neighbors to compromise whenever you can. As a peacemaker, the lawyer has superior opportunity of being a good man. There will still be business enough. And there's so many people that just litigate so quickly. And it's very sad how the world is, and you know, everybody's just going for each other from a legal perspective. And we get government interference that we've got to deal with, and they want more, put up the taxes and that kind of stuff. But it's as like a ball, you've got to watch out for the brides and the grooms, and you know, the other guys have got other ulterior motives, and who are trying to get wealth in different ways. And family, isn't it strange sometimes when somebody passes away in the family, some long-lost cousin rocks up at the funeral, Says, who are you? No, I'm the cousin. And then, of course, what are they after? The estate. Somewhere they're on and you've never seen them for like 40 years. Does it ring true with somebody? Is it real? So, yeah. So it's all about the correct structures in investing. And I think you know this pretty well. Where the deals are in real estate is debt, death, departure, divorce, and downsize. And when is that? It's every single day, all the time. Many people don't realize that's happening daily, not monthly or weekly. It's all the time. Somebody says, when do I invest? Well, I say, well, today. Because, next month it'll probably be a little bit more expensive. Next year it'll be more. So the best time to invest is now. Up market, down market, no. Because there's always those things over there. So the right information is important, and a lot of us get the wrong information. And I just used this from Time magazine, who's talking about, this is in December 47. The prices of houses seem to reach a plateau, and there's a reasonable expectancy that prices will decline. That was in 47. In 48, houses cost too much. And the average US dollar was $8,000. And look at it. The goal of owning a home seems to be getting beyond the reach. Aren't we hearing the same messages today? Yes. We can't. How are my kids going to afford a house? The era of easy profits in real estate may be drawing to a close. Money magazine. And look at the value of property. It's going up. It's going up. And it's going up. 283,000 January. It's round about there at the moment. Real question is, how long will housing prices look in the longer term? So you've got to check your sources. Verify it. We tend to take everything just on face value. Ariana Huffman says, if you take care of your mind, you take care of the world. Very important. So real wealth, as I say, goes beyond the balance sheet. Right? Guys, I'm not going to go into all these questions, but we can maybe do it at another time. A lot of interaction. I just want to come with, in closing, how to become a successful real estate agent. Because I actually train a lot of agents. I trained a couple of real estate groups already on how to increase their sales. Lead generate 3 hours a day. These are the tips I have. Define a system for customer service. Very important. Design your brand, whether it's your personal brand, get active on social media, and train yourself continuously. It's so important. Step 6 is to check your mindset daily, and more important, what is your dream? So Steve Jobs said, your time is limited, so don't waste your time living somebody else's life. Okay, now I've got an offer over here for a course. I mean, I'm 52 now. You've got to look at how much time do you have left. And I think some of us don't have a lot of time. So depending, of course, where you're on that scale, you've got to do something. So how you can double your sales results, get a coach or mentor. And the number one reason why people fail is they don't have a system and they try to figure it out by themselves. I've done coaching. That's the Sharks rugby team. I've learned from the best, the Trumps, the Mark Wainers, the Kiyosakis, the Rudolph Duristas. All these people have been my mentors, trainers, coaches. And there's 2 master lessons I learned. The science of achievement and fulfillment. It requires a plan, a strategy. And fulfillment, you must experience joy in the process. What's the point of making money if you don't have fun? Because without fulfillment, it's failure. Would you agree with that? Okay, so in closing, I'm closing, Louis. I can see Nerak's a wiki. So Jack Welch said, before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. And when you become a leader, success is all about growing others. And so that's what I'm doing. Sorry, that's the one I did in Johannesburg recently. It's a double property sales. And I'm going to put it up over here. Where, it's a half-day seminar here in Cape Town. I've got the dates here. I've got follow-up webinars. And it's on that date over there, Saturday the 16th of April from 8. And then I do follow-up webinars. I do 2 one-hour personal consultations as well. In your business, normally I charge $4,000 for it. Today, only at $1,450. To book for it, just SMS that number. I'll put it up on the screen for those who are interested, or you can speak to me afterwards. I'm passionate about giving back to everybody. So, and I want to end off. This is my final slide, Louis. So, there are so many people out there will tell you that you can't. Okay? What you got to do is turn around and say, watch me. Thank you very much, guys.